Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by OnPay, Atlanta's new standard in payroll. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, it's important to recognize our sponsor, OnPay. Without them, we couldn't be sharing these important stories. Today on Atlanta Business Radio, we have Stephen Pope with My Amazon Guy. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Lee.
I am so excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us about My Amazon Guy. How you serving folks?
So I run a 500-employee company called My Amazon Guy, and we help brands grow their business on Amazon. So that's why they call me the Amazon Guy.
So what's your backstory?
I used to be a TV reporter over in Idaho, Wisconsin, and then I was doing a live weather hits in, Madison, Wisconsin, biggest blizzard the state had seen in a decade. And 10 o'clock at night, missed my cue to go on the air. And I had hair back then. My hair froze over. I missed my cue. I felt like an idiot, and everybody else was home in their pajamas. And I said, you know what? I would rather get into this e-commerce game where I could work from home. And so I actively transitioned my career and have been doing that since the past 15 years. So I've done everything from women's plus size clothing to kitchen equipment to gold and silver coins. And after I got laid off about 6 years ago from a lighting company, I said, you know what? I'm tired of growing these e-commerce brands and making these guys millions of dollars. I'm going to go do it for myself in the true entrepreneur spirit. And it's been a really good big growth since then. And we run $20 million in gross every year now as an agency, what clients pay us. And it's been a good ride. So I accomplished my mission.
So do you still have brands that you're selling yourself?
I do. I grew a brand called Age of Sage, selling some soaps. We have a brand called Holstit that sold holsters, where we manufactured holsters from scratch over in the Carolinas. Some things went well, other things were a disaster, and turns out nobody wants to buy an American-made holster when they can buy the Chinese version for half the cost.
So, but you still keep kind of a toe in that water just to keep fresh or to try your own things on behalf of your clients, or is now the majority of your work helping other people be successful on Amazon?
So I did sell one of my brands so I could go back and focus on my agency, and I ended up losing $250,000 in stock or inventory. And, a lot of people, if you go on YouTube right now and you listen to some gurus about selling on Amazon, they make it out to be this easy thing. Oh, it's passive income and it's so easy. All you got to do is follow my course and buy my course for $1,000 or whatever it might be. And I have kind of an opposite experience where I think it's incredibly difficult, and sometimes you need an expert to help you along the way. And obviously, I'm biased to say that, but it's been the biggest wealth transfer in my lifetime. It's made me a millionaire, and I'm open about how it's helped me in selling on the platform. And we've helped thousands of other brands do the same thing, but it's extraordinarily difficult. You have the Chinese hitting you from the left, and they're lowering their prices and making margins difficult. You have aggregators hitting you from the right, where they ingested $7 billion into the space in the last 3 years, buying up brands and making it more complex because they're adding techniques, they're adding tech, they're adding AI. And then so you're getting hit from the right from aggregators, and then you're getting hit from the top from Amazon because they're making it harder to sell on the platform. They're adding regulation, they're adding fees just if you have low inventory. So there's a lot of complex dynamics going on, and the Amazon seller is squished from every side in a box right now. But, at the end of the day, the consumers that get those brown boxes shipped to their house, and you got Prime Now, you don't even have to wait a full day to get a shipment and get a box. I got to say, it's a great consumer experience, but the seller gets the shaft in many instances.
So now, is there kind of a type of seller that that this works best for, or is this something that, like you said, you started, hey, I got this idea and I'm going to be this guy and I can do this out of my garage? Like, is that really a path for somebody that doesn't have, the resources you described, or is it now kind of matured to a point where, look, if you don't have, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in this venture, it's going to be difficult for you to be successful?
it's going to be a mixed bag answer here. So what I love about Amazon is that if you have $4, $5, $6,000 to set aside, you wouldn't lose your shirt. You could still pay rent if you lost it. That's enough to get started. A lot of people will start with certain models like retail arbitrage. You're going over to the Toys R Us when they go out of business and buying some stock and then reselling it on the platform. I specialize in private label, and that's where you make a brand, and it's very possible for somebody to do it out of their garage, do it out of their closet, whatnot. That's how I started, and you'll find thousands of those stories online. It's harder today than it was 5-6 years ago. I was in the beta program for advertising on Amazon, and I was getting PPC clicks in position 1 for 2 cents a click. And that's unheard of today where, if you sell a supplement, you're paying $5 a click. The nice thing about Amazon is that the average conversion rate is 10%. So 1 out of 10 people that go to your listing is going to buy. That's an incredibly high conversion rate. Compare that to a Shopify or any sort of web store where their average conversion rate is closer to 1%. So Amazon has solved a lot of problems, which makes it easier for you as a marketer or as a product sourcer to have a chance at launching a product or launching a brand on Amazon. That's why you hear of the concept native-born Amazon brands. You won't ever hear that about Walmart, right? Because Walmart's not really a marketplace. It's a retailer that's kind of allows you to sell on their platform, but they still cheat the in-retail products on the top of the search results. Amazon is very much a fair, open marketplace. It may not feel like that at sometimes with some of the policies, but in reality it is, because you can launch something and know within 6 weeks, and you could have $40,000, $50,000 in monthly sales within, a couple of months. It's not guaranteed. It's an investment, but it's possible. And you can't say that about any other platform in the United States today.
Now, like in in any marketplace, you're kind of beholden to the marketplace. Like these are your customers. They're Amazon's customers.
True.
Is part of your strategy to help these brands get the business out of the platform and into at least their database so they can market to them without having to pay? Because like any marketplace, when you have you're the place where business gets done, then you control who is seen first, and then it becomes a lot of times a place where, you want to be first, you have to pay, and then you're ending up paying the marketplace to be seen. Whereas at the beginning, like you said, it was 2 cents a click to be seen, and now it's, whatever, $5, $10 a click, depending on what the product is. So now you have to pay more and more money. Like that number is not getting less; it's only going to get higher.
Amazon is about a 1/3 partner. So if you sold an item for $100 on Amazon, they're going to take $33 of that, give or take. And it's a 15% referral fee right off the top. After that, you've got logistics and advertising, and that usually comes out to be right around 33%. Depending on the category, it can go up or down a couple points. Is there an incentive to go off the Amazon platform? I think there could be a case to be made about that. I think you'd hear arguments for both sides. But why would you want to send the consumer to your 1% converting Shopify account when you get 10% conversion on Amazon? Is generally the default position that I hold. Yes, you don't get control of the customers. That's a downside, and it's a pretty major one. But there really isn't any incentive to try and collect that data. Amazon is basically encrypting that data now. You can't even send email messages without getting in trouble unless it's about a shipment. So you can't market them at all. That's a fact. But the nice thing about Amazon, though, is you can acquire new customers. And the lifetime value is still very apparent. So they have a program called Subscribe and Save. Well, if you've got a supplement that you sell and maybe it costs you more than the product to acquire the customer, but they hit that subscribe and save button, and then all of a sudden your lifetime value of that customer is 5x or 10x, that's where people are making their money. And so a subscribe and save program that's very common for customers, they're acquainted to it. There's a 10% conversion rate on the Amazon platform. When you add all those things up, a lot of brands that I work with, out of the 400 brands I work with, at least 300 of them only sell on Amazon or have 95% only sales on Amazon. So a lot of Amazon native born brands don't have to go anywhere else to have enough to run their entire company.
Now, you mentioned that, the end customer is Amazon's customer. It's not your customer. I don't know if this is true, maybe this is one of the myths, but if something is being successful, I've heard that Amazon has all the data and says, oh, that brand is killing it. Why don't we have an Amazon Basics brand of that? And then we take all this market research on the back of all these people who have products out here. And then they say, okay, let's us handpick and manufacture just this thing because we know that it's working in the marketplace because we have all the data.
So the FTC is actually suing Amazon for literally doing exactly that. It's kind of a farce of a lawsuit, in my opinion. I don't think anything meaningful will come from that. But I do think that Amazon will give us a sacrificial lamb, so to speak, where they'll be like, oh, we'll cut out some of our private label brands we're losing money on anyway. And they'll sacrifice them. But at the end of the day, Amazon did do some corrupt things. I've heard the personal stories. I've met the people that have gone through it where a brand would own the manufacturing facility in China. And the only information about that manufacturing facility was because they submitted a COA document, certificate of analysis document, into Amazon, and Amazon reverse engineered it and then called the manufacturer to try and cut them out. So I've seen the stories. I've talked to the brands that have experienced it. Yes, Amazon has a problem. There is a culture of corruption with a monopoly, and this is inevitable with any monopoly ever. But overall, it's also, while it is the elephant in the room that we all have to talk about, and it's a nice, big, fluffy pink elephant, it's also the elephant you have to work with, right? And so there's things you can do to try and protect yourself, but really, you could be ripped off by the Chinese just as easily as you could be ripped off by Amazon. And so you just have to build a really powerful brand. You just have to focus on your marketing and your customer delivery. And that's what can protect you from some of that corruption.
Now, do you mind doing some kind of on-air consulting? I'll give you a
Sure.
product, and then you tell me what you think. So a friend of mine got into the Amazon business. This is a true story. He developed a product, and it's called Fire Water, and it's a tea that has like cayenne pepper in the tea. And it started out as a gargle, now it's a tea. And he's been on Amazon, and he's just a guy, he isn't experienced like you in the platform, but he's just went through the process, I guess, like you were at the beginning, and he's getting some traction, but he doesn't have escape velocity. What would you do if you were him to achieve escape velocity?
So the price of his item, I just looked it up on Amazon. So he's selling it for about $8. It's Firewater for a sore throat. I think he has a challenge brand name because when you type in Firewater, what comes up is fire extinguisher products. And so he's made a unique brand name position that will be challenging for search engine competition. So that's a challenge. I see that he's built a brand store. He's got some mild A+ content. But a lot of the optimization techniques that I preach haven't been done yet. So there's no humanization. There's not a single picture of a human anywhere on his listing. There's not a video. He doesn't have 500 words of copy in his A+ content. He doesn't tell his brand story. And so if I were to order this right now, there's no subscribe. Well, actually there is subscribe and save. So that's good. So that one's enabled. But he probably needs to fund it a little bit. So instead of it being like the standard 5% subscribe and save, might need to go to 10 or 15% to try and incentivize that. He's only selling 20 sachets is what he's calling them. And I would probably try and create a bulk box deal and offer a further discount to try and increase that AOV. I would add a video of somebody stirring the tea and maybe making some jokes about how his throat's on fire or how it makes the throat feel better after, whatever. It's fire water. You got to make some jokes here. But there's really this one very much needs the dude wipes treatment to go viral, right? Like, make it funny. Have a TikTok video where somebody's drinking fire water and it's all of a sudden it's the 15-year-old cinnamon challenge again in the kitchen. So there's a lot of things that could be done to take this brand, but with a 3.9 star review brand, it's polarizing, right? There's 50 reviews, average 3.9 star, and because it's polarizing, I think he's going to have to embrace that, right? So if you look down at the reviews, what are people saying? And the people that don't like it make fun of it, right? The people that do like it, why do they like it? and using the language that the consumer speaks. So I'm just looking at a random review here from Rebecca, who was a Vine reviewer, which I wouldn't recommend doing Vine review, by the way. Says smells great, gave it a 3-star review, unsure of its reliability. Right. And so having to come speak to that reliability and explain why it is what it is. And the tea is a light yellow green color and it smells delicious. However, even after 6 minutes, the tea doesn't have an abundance of flavor that I would imagine with all the bold ingredients listed. And so there could be some product best practice use instructions that need to be included or explaining that. Another person writes 2-star review. Okay, this doesn't have much flavor besides spice. Few members of our household tried it and agreed. We all also agreed it didn't help with the sore throat. So there's some challenges where people have expectations versus the delivery of the product. And even another person wrote 1-star, weak flavors. So there's probably some really big branding emphasis, but also some general best practices the listener needs to do to kind of collect its demographic, right? There's no customer avatar to say like, yeah, this is the perfect customer. So for example, if I was selling a Russian mail order bride right now, my perfect customer would be a 3-time divorced truck driver. I don't know what the equivalent is for a firewater sore throat tea, but we need to identify that and it needs to be present on the listing to get that velocity.
So if he wanted to work with you or your firm, like what does it take to get into the queue to get your team helping?
I love the fact I get to pitch myself, but it feels weird. MyAmazonGuy.com. Anybody can come over and by the way, there's a bunch of free content I put out there on YouTube and my LinkedIn. You guys are welcome to follow me. A lot of times when I work with somebody, they've watched 20 of my videos. We get on a phone call together and they're like, yeah, I want exactly that. Just give me that. And I say, cool, no problem. And then I give them what they ask for. But we do have some a la carte options. You know, if somebody wants to get a coaching call or they just want to get a specific design made, we're happy to help a customer anywhere we go. We even file trademarks. Basically, kind of the concept as an entrepreneur is I like to never lose a customer and I like to give customers exactly what they need. And so I've built my entire business to do that. And I like to joke, I'm an education company that happens to be an agency. And that's done well for me. It's made me a lot of money and not everybody that, you know, watches my content will become a customer. But if 1% of them do, and I have 5 million people watch my content, I've got a lot of customers and I'm pretty happy with that.
And then what's a reasonable expectation? Like how quickly, if something works, is it something like it flips a switch and it works, or is it something that has to slowly build over time?
Certain elements are flip switch. So for example, if you switch your main image on Amazon, you'll see the sales impact within the first 5 to 7 days. Other things like search engine optimization could take 3 months plus because you're jockeying for competitive position. But the nice thing about SEO, long-term investment, it doesn't cost a whole lot and it pays dividends for years. Other things like PPC, somewhere in between, maybe like 2 to 4 week turnaround on advertising. Sometimes it could be a little bit faster. Sometimes it's harder depending on what level somebody's at today. But there are elements of short-term wins, long-term gains, and just depends on what the goals of the brand are and what you're trying to do.
Now, is it something that like you can tell like, okay, this is not going to work? Or is it something like,
Yes.
Well, it may work. Let's just keep throwing money at it and we'll see. We can turn it around.
So here's the best part about this is that even though I've done this thousands of times, I've worked with thousands of brands, I personally have some preferences. Like I love working in kitchen. I love working in home goods. And obviously this tea would be right up my alleyway. But there are a lot of products that I think will work and fall flat. And there's a lot of products I'm like, oh, this is a slam dunk and we can't do jack for. And so I've got enough road rash to know that my best practices will work 75% of the time, but 1 out of 4 products will not. And it's been very interesting to find out like I'm not as good at guessing as I thought I am, even though I'm an Amazon expert. So the reason I share that is because you really can't get a gauge on whether it's going to work without going through the motions. And even if you have the perfect data set, the simple form of action in business is more important than having it perfect. So for the people that are listening to this that are high detail perfectionists, you're not going to like that answer, and I totally understand. But for the guys that are more big picture and they're high drive and they love winning, Amazon's an easy platform for you to work on because you get fast results. So if you embrace that hummingbird methodology where you flap your wings really fast. You don't need to measure twice and cut once. You just go from nectar to nectar and you move really fast. Agility is rewarded on this platform. So making a lot of micro adjustments adds up really fast.
So now when in a process like yours that requires a lot of tweaking and a lot of iterating, is that something you do or is that something that your client does?
So we're full service. We do everything, everything from SEO, PPC, design, catalog work. A lot of people who are buyers on Amazon and then become a seller are usually thrown off by how much catalog work there is and troubleshooting. Like your listing will just be yanked off the platform one day, and Amazon's a shoot first, ask questions later type of platform, and it takes them weeks to get it back up. And we see that on like a by the hour process on our side with the amount of clients we work with. So we're always constantly reinstating listings and troubleshooting and all those challenges. The one thing that you can count on when selling on Amazon is that it's going to be never ending changes, and you need to always be optimizing. So it's kind of circular logic, and all ships rise together at the same time. So if you focus on one key element, you can see some improvements, but you're going to have to come back to that key element later. So if you set your title on Amazon and then never change it for 5 years, that's not good. If you set your price but never move the price up or down and it's static, that's not good. You have to consistently come back and back again and rotate all of the copy, rotate all the keywords, rotate the PPC, rotate the imagery. And for whatever reason, we find that Amazon rewards that dynamic approach, and it's important to always be optimizing.
And when you say always, is that daily, weekly, monthly?
Yeah, it depends on which thing we're talking. So something like search terms optimization, somewhere between a month to 3 month rotations. Something with pricing, if you're exiting a high season, you probably need to lower your prices shortly thereafter. So some things are timing dependent and goal dependent, right? So if we asked a brand, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being profit at the cost of growth, 10 being growth at the cost of profit, what's your number? And they say, I'm a 10, and I'll be like, cool, let's lower your price, spend $100,000 on ads, and let's go, right? But if somebody said I'm a 5, then a measured approach, okay, so we need to grow and be profitable at the same time. Very, very difficult to do that. Then we're going to take a very different approach. So depending on the goal, the outcome can be affected.
So who is your ideal client? I know that you say you have hundreds of clients or hundreds of brands you represent. Is that
Yep.
Is it the brand that's spending $1,000 a month on ads, $1 million a month on ads? Like, what's your sweet spot?
So the small mom and pop business owners are my favorite, if I had to tell the truth. And it's the people who are really good at sourcing, but may not have a marketing background. So I'll give you a couple examples. So I worked with a guy who made license plate holders, and I also worked with a guy that did aftermarket Harley Davidson motorcycle bars. And these guys were already, doing somewhere between, $20,000 and $100,000 a month. I would come in and blow them up in 90 days and double them because their product was good, but they didn't have lifestyle imagery. They didn't have the demographics showing up. They didn't identify their customer avatar. They didn't run ads at all. They didn't have all of the nice, nifty A+ content, enhanced brand content designs on the listing. And so when we come in and take somebody from a good product with no marketing to some marketing, the results are instantaneous. I obviously do want to go upstream and work with the enterprise brands, but they're a lot harder. It's like way harder to go from good to great, which, by the way, From Good to Great's a great book in the business world, but it's more challenging. So that's why I like to say, working with the small mom and pop businesses, it's more rewarding. They typically have never worked with an agency before, and so having a good experience with your first agency and setting them up right to begin with is pretty rare, because there's just so many people out there that help with Amazon. There's a ton of boutiques, one-man bands and consultants and all that, but everybody specializes in something else, and so you never know, what you're going to get. But it's so fun to just see the look in somebody's eye when you come in and double their business, and the relationship dynamic is just so rewarding when you help somebody. I don't save babies, but I do make livelihoods, and they have families, right? And a job is temporary. You know, you might have 20 jobs in your lifetime, but families are forever. And if we can help somebody build their family business up, there's just nothing better than that.
Now, when someone's marketing their brand, is it best to just stay within the Amazon ecosystem, or should you be, running ads on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or other platforms?
There's no wrong answer to that question. I'm going to be biased and say stick to Amazon because I'm my Amazon guy. But what I would say is it's just simply more cost effective to stay within the Amazon ecosystem. There's less complexity. That's where half the economy is. Like 80% of the households in the United States are Prime members, which is an absurd stat. You can't say the same about any other membership program in the States as it relates to e-commerce. And so you could put the same amount of effort into another platform like Walmart and get 1/100th the results. You could do the same thing with eBay or Etsy or Target or some other platform or Shopify. And so for the best bang for the buck, there's no question Amazon is the place to be, no matter what size you are today.
So if somebody, again, wants to learn more, check out your videos, hire you, what's the website again?
myamazonguy.com. And we do have a lot of, try before you buy content. So you guys can check it out if you're interested. We look forward to serving you.
All right. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.